Robert Durst was the eldest son born to Bernice and Seymour Durst, a real estate tycoon and inventor of the national debt clock. Durst grew up in Scarsdale, New York, and had few friends. Scarsdale High School classmates described him as quiet, withdrawn, and a loner. Durst claims to have witnessed his mother's death at age 7. It was never determined if her death was an accident or a suicide. Durst describes her as, quote, having a violent death, and he became more withdrawn after the loss. Robert earned a Bachelor's of Economics in 1965 from Lehigh University. In 1969, he enrolled in a doctoral program at UCLA but withdrew before completion. It was in Los Angeles he first met Susan Berman. Susan was the only child of a powerful Las Vegas mobster, and they were instantly drawn to each other, bonding over the losses of parents at early ages. Susan lost both parents before 14, and it molded her behavior and thinking, at which times bordered on paranoia. In Robert, she found a companion and confidant. Durst returned to New York to work in the family real estate business, and it was there in 1971 he met Kathy McCormick. After 2 dates, Robert asked Kathy to move to Middlebury, Vermont, where he owned a health food store, All Good Things. By 1973, they were married, and after Robert pushed Kathy into having an abortion, the marriage soured. Shouting matches turned physical, and Kathy began telling multiple friends that if something happened to her, to, quote, not to let Bob get away with it. In 1982, shortly after Kathy met with an attorney and began exploring divorce, she went missing. On January 31st, 1982, Durst claims they had an argument and he dropped Kathy off at the train station close to their lake house in South Salem, New York. She got on the last train, and by his account, he spoke with her when she arrived in Manhattan. The doorman of their apartment also reported seeing her that evening. Friends became worried when Kathy didn't make a scheduled appearance at a party. When they called Durst, he seemed unfazed by a potentially missing wife. The dean of her medical school also called to report Kathy hadn't been in class for a week. It was then Durst went to the 20th precinct in New York to report her missing. 5 days had passed since Kathy was last seen. Bob was able to provide what the detectives thought was a credible timeline for the events of January 31st. Police did not consider him a suspect. They also didn't thoroughly investigate his alibi, which would change several times over the years, with Durst himself saying he lied to investigators, quote, so they would move on. I did not tell the whole truth. Nobody tells the whole truth, he was later quoted as saying regarding his dishonesty. The story was tabloid fodder in New York. Missing posters of Kathy lining the streets were adorned with a handsome reward that peaked at $100,000. Durst called on his old friend Susan Berman for assistance with the media barrage. She became his press spokesperson and shielded him from reporters. Nothing solid came of the investigation, and Kathleen remained a missing person.